Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Naruto Alternative Universe fic from Archive of Our Own by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence called Scars. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. Note, this fic is rated explicit. On with the show. Scars by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence. Chapter 9. Sunday, November 15th. Deidara's printer was running non-stop as it printed every file Naruto had gotten for them. It was 3 in the morning, but the brothers were hard at work putting everything in order. Sasuke only concerned himself with 10 years of financial reports and expense reports. Every cent that came in or left their family's company for 8 years before the murders and 2 years after. Itachi loaded a third ream of paper into the printer and freshened up the coffee in the coffee maker. Sasuke had been groomed to take over the company since Itachi fled, so Itachi left a lot of the analysis of the papers to him. Itachi had been focused on survival and hunting his father. He didn't know what half of these papers meant anymore, and it would take too long to reacquaint himself. Sasuke seemed to know what he was doing anyway. The sun was peeking over the mountains and glinted through the windows while Sasuke sat still, staring blankly as he thought, the printer having gone silent 2 hours ago. Itachi had curled up in the chair and Sasuke had laid a blanket over him. Sasuke's eyes suddenly grew aware and he kicked the leg of Itachi's chair. "Move that chair, I need more room." Itachi would have been angry if Sasuke didn't seem so intense. Sasuke went through every year and pulled certain papers, making new stacks. Since Sasuke apparently didn't feel like talking to him or need his help, Itachi wandered off to make more coffee and some breakfast. Itachi stared out at the rising sun, feeling hopeful as he heard his brother frantically sorting through the 4 reams of paper. He drank his coffee, letting the mug warm his chilled fingers. Then, silence. That silence was eerie. Itachi put his cup back down and rushed back to Sasuke, worried he had collapsed or something. Sasuke hadn't collapsed. He was staring down at one of the stacks he made. "Sasuke? I know who did it." "Who?" I didn't want to believe it, but I confirmed it. "He killed his brother and then our family. For money, that son of a bitch!" Sasuke hissed. He started looking around. "Where the fuck is my phone?" Itachi stood up and pretended to fetch it from his bedroom. He handed it off. Sasuke started searching, even logging into the FBI website and pulling up more files. Itachi looked at the pile Sasuke had created. He sagged, seeing who the files were pointing to. Sasuke directed his brother to find documents about their family's murder while he looked for the files from another death. Sasuke needed sleep, so after he printed out another ream of paper and sorted it, he went to bed and slept for 6 hours while Itachi reviewed everything Sasuke had found. He was proud of his brother's investigative skills. Sasuke got up and went back drawing up the case. It was after sunset when he finished his report that detailed all the evidence and his conclusions, just as the Bureau had taught him. "Why didn't I ever put the 2 together?" Sasuke berated himself. "You thought I did it." "That's right, but you didn't. Only one person could have done all the murders, profited from them, knew where that cistern was, and might know you were back in town." With dark circles under his eyes, but re-energized by his discoveries, Sasuke turned to his brother. "Let's go bail out your boyfriend." Naruto and Sakura turned their attention to another case for a while they were at a dead end with Sasuke, but as everyone else started going home, Kakashi called them in to discuss his second irritating meeting with Deidara. As Kakashi ranted, Naruto and Kakashi both received the same text. "Meet me in front of headquarters. The sender's name, Deme/Sasuke." Since they both heard their phones go off at the same time and checked their phones simultaneously, they locked eyes. They knew they both got the same message. Since the message was for the 2 of them alone, they left without inviting anyone else to join them, just throwing a hasty "excuse us" behind them. Once outside, Naruto asked, "You got the message from Sasuke?" "Yes." "I hope it's really him." A familiar black Cadillac approached and pulled into a spot nearby. Sasuke stepped out of the passenger door. Naruto moved towards Sasuke, but Sasuke only had eyes for Kakashi. Sasuke broke into a run, going right past Naruto and hugged Kakashi, throwing his arms around his chest and tucking his head under Kakashi's chin, doing the very thing Itachi had warned him Naruto might do. He forgot himself and ran to the person he really cared for. As suspicious and angry as Kakashi was, he couldn't deny his feelings for Sasuke, and he put one arm comfortingly around his shoulders and mussed the younger man's hair with the other hand. He was just so happy to have Sasuke back. He then leaned his head against Sasuke's and whispered, "I've missed you terribly." "I'm sorry," Sasuke whispered back. "I ached for you." Neither of them gave a single thought to the extent they had just revealed their relationship. Granted, Naruto and Itachi were the only ones who saw them. Naruto just kept walking slowly toward the car, backward now, watching them, feeling the burn of rejection. It hurt, knowing that Sasuke didn't want him, that somehow he had been replaced by Kakashi without his knowing. So Genma and Deidara were right about them. He stopped very near the Cadillac. "It hurts, doesn't it?" Itachi asked, stopping beside Naruto, his eyes on the reunited couple. "Did you know?" Naruto whispered as his stomach flip-flopped wildly. "You don't know how sorry I am that this happened. I told you Sasuke was a fool for not claiming you." "That's a yes, then." "I'm sorry." For almost a full minute, Kakashi's entire world contracted to just the compass of his arms and the raven-haired bastard in them. He had his lover back, warm and solid in his arms. He didn't realize until now just how much he missed him, how much he needed him. The lonely, worried nights since Sasuke disappeared were a pale preview. The relief almost took him to his knees. Kakashi pulled away from Sasuke, but still kept him well within reach. His eyes landed on Naruto and Itachi. Without a second thought, he had Sasuke safely behind him, his gun trained on Itachi. Naruto responded, shielding Itachi behind his own body. "Don't you dare!" Sasuke fought his way from behind Kakashi, easily bypassing his outstretched arm. Seeing there was no restraining or shielding the fiery raven, Kakashi put both hands around the grip of his gun and kept it trained on Itachi's forehead, his heart being obstructed by a certain blonde. "Dobe?" Sasuke demanded, wondering why Naruto was doing his job protecting his brother. "Don't!" Naruto bit out, restraining the stinging tears at the corner of his eyes. "Don't call me that anymore!" Sasuke squared his jaw and narrowed his eyes. "What are you doing, Naruto?" Kakashi wanted to roll his eyes at the little spat between friends/lovers and their lack of priorities at the moment. "Itachi Uchiha?" Kakashi questioned. "I want to know what Naruto is doing, Kakashi," Sasuke interrupted. Kakashi kept his gun trained on the elder Uchiha, but his eyes darted to Sasuke. "Is now the time?" Itachi sighed. "You should stand down, Naruto." But Naruto shook his head. "This isn't your fight. It's mine." "You asked me to trust you. Does that work in reverse?" "Of course." Naruto looked over his shoulder. "Then just stand there and shut up!" Itachi's eyes shut up, silently amused by the brazen agent. "You're a lot more fun in person, Naruto." He whispered his name to their ears only. "In person?" Sasuke asked. "You've been in contact with Sasuke?" Kakashi demanded of Naruto. No! Naruto and Sasuke refuted at the same time. "It's easy enough to look into your phone records, Naruto," Kakashi said. "Have you been in contact with Itachi before?" "Yes." "For how long, Dobe?" Sasuke asked, softening. Naruto turned cold eyes on Sasuke, still feeling that keen sting of rejection. He didn't feel like being cooperative, and certainly not with Sasuke. "You said it yourself, Kakashi. Take a look at my phone records," Naruto said, ignoring Sasuke completely. "Naruto," Itachi warned, but Naruto shook his head again. "Do you know you could be imprisoned for conspiracy?" Kakashi spoke again. "Does it look like I care?" "Stop being stupid, Dobe!" "I told you to stop calling me that! I think you've lost that privilege, Sasuke," Naruto said, turning tear-obstructed eyes on his former lover. Sasuke nodded. "Privilege, Dobe? I thought it was a right." Naruto grit his teeth, turning to glare at Sasuke.
You have no right where I'm concerned. Not anymore.
Naruto was startled to feel the tears run down his cheeks.
All you had to do was tell me. Did you think so little of me that I wouldn't be happy for you?
That isn't...
Then what? Tell me, Deme! Make me understand!
Naruto sniffled. As much as it did concern Kakashi, he couldn't believe this conversation was happening now, at gunpoint. You want me to say I was selfish? Well, guess what? I am selfish, Sasuke said with a shrug. He said with the privilege of someone who's once lost everything important to him. Sasuke couldn't stop his eyes from darting to his brother's face briefly. I lost everything once, and now I'm afraid to lose anything. Even give something up. But Kakashi is the only I truly love. I'm sorry, Naruto. As much as I love Kakashi, I just couldn't give you up. He turned to Kakashi, who still had his gun aimed between Itachi's eyebrows. I won't say anything now because it's going to have to be a much longer discussion. But I truly love you. And I'm sorry. I had my suspicions, but you're right, now is not the time. Right now, I want you to tell me what the hell your brother is doing here, and why isn't he in cuffs? Sasuke sighed. I was wrong. We all were. Itachi's innocent. The reason I've been gone is I've been working with Itachi to find proof of his innocence. We discovered the real murderer. Kakashi's eyes hardened a bit more, and kept his sights on Itachi for a few more heartbeats, and then lowered his gun. The two Uchiha and Naruto sighed in relief. What's your relationship to Itachi? Kakashi asked Naruto. You've been in contact with Itachi every day since you found out Sasuke disappeared, Shikamaru said, stepping out of the shadows. I thought I would check the phone records for Sasuke's cell to see if he happened to be using it since we last checked. Just because he wasn't answering didn't mean it was never used. We all knew you were acting unusual, but we chalked it up to frustration and anger in Sasuke's disappearance. Sasuke sent his brother a betrayed look.
The first time I got a call,
Naruto said,
I thought it was Sasuke, but it was Itachi instead. He wanted my help, and at the time he was leveraging Sasuke's safety. I took the chance and decided to trust him. It wasn't until the third call that I heard Sasuke in the background, bickering with someone. I can't tell you how that put me at ease just to hear him. After that, I had little reason to doubt Itachi's words.
You threatened my safety? Sasuke asked his brother incredulously. Itachi just sort of shrugged off the question. Sasuke, Shikamaru said, turning to the Uchiha. You should go upstairs and show the others you're alive and explain the situation. It'll be best coming from you. Yeah, Sasuke agreed. I need everyone's help anyway. Room 402. Sasuke nodded. Kakashi was torn whether to follow his truant lover or keep a closer eye on Itachi. He chose Sasuke. Rather than waiting for the elevator, Sasuke led the four others up the stairs. Kakashi stayed close behind Sasuke, afraid to have him out of his sight for more than a few seconds. Shikamaru followed the slower pair of Naruto and Itachi. Sasuke wasn't the type to hesitate, but he almost did when he came to the door of room 402. He opened the door. Temari, Genma, Sakura and Nechi all turned to look at him. Sakura and Nechi stood up at the sight of him. After a moment, the pure shock of seeing Sasuke again passed, and Sakura threw herself into his chest. Where the hell have you been? Temari asked. Nice to see you too, Sasuke said over Sakura's shoulder. Somehow, he felt like he'd come home at this very moment. Even if it was Sakura hugging him and Temari he was looking at, being back among his friends and colleagues relieved him. The FBI had become his life. Knowing Kakashi and Naruto were behind him and his brother nearby made him feel whole again. Naruto and Itachi were slow to follow, a deep ache dulling Naruto's senses with every step he took. He knew there would be a lot of questions, mostly from Sakura, but he didn't want to answer them. He just wanted to go home, curl up in a ball, and forget about Sasuke for a moment. He stopped in the doorway, watching Sakura hugging Sasuke tight, the relieved smile on Neji and Temari's faces, and the shocked expression Genma was too slow to hide. Shikamaru stepped around Naruto into the room. Really, where have you been? Temari asked again. Sasuke released Sakura and took a deep breath. Trying to find out who killed my family. It wasn't Itachi, and I have the proof. He is innocent. This entire time he was innocent. I'm glad you're not dead, Sasuke. Somebody thumped him on the shoulder, almost sending him headlong into Sakura. Kakashi caught him and balanced him on his feet. Naruto managed a small smile of support even though he was still in the hall. You're an interesting one, Naruto. Itachi breathed right into Naruto's ear, startling the blonde.
What the fuck?
He exclaimed, jumping away and striking Itachi in the shoulder, pushing the amused Uchiha backwards by 2 steps. A blush dusted Naruto's face as he clutched his ear, still tingling from Itachi's breath.
Don't do that!
All eyes turned to the doorway, slight panic rising in some of their chests at the sight of Itachi Uchiha in front of them, smiling. Sasuke's eyes narrowed at the pair's behavior. You're quite sensitive there, Itachi laughed. Naruto rubbed furiously at his ear and growled.
So, what if I am?
He whispered. It's interesting. Itachi Uchiha. Nechi spoke slowly, cautiously, eyeing Sasuke's older brother for the first time in over a decade. It's been a while. Itachi grabbed Naruto's shoulder and pushed him into the room so that they weren't lurking in the corridor anymore. Too long, Itachi smiled, recalling the young Hyuga who hung around Sasuke when they were younger. Neji had grown tall and good-looking. He was the epitome of a Hyuga beauty. Forgive me for believing you to be a mass murderer, Neji said. The truth has come out in the end, thanks to a bit of help. Itachi's eyes slid to Naruto. That picture doesn't do him justice, Itachi mused as his eyes danced over Naruto's features in the full light for the first time. He couldn't deny his attraction to the blonde seeing him in person. He had to have him. Neji followed Itachi's line of vision, landing on Naruto too. You were helping them? He questioned. Naruto gave a curt nod. You knew all this time where Sasuke was? Sakura accused.
No!
Naruto and Sasuke spoke at the same time.
I didn't know where Sasuke was,
Naruto said. Bet you knew he was alive!
So did you!
Naruto snapped, feeling on the verge of a breakdown.
You saw him too!
But you knew before that! How long? How long have you known?
Since the day we found out Sasuke disappeared,
Naruto said, clenching his teeth in expectation of striking blow from Sakura. His partner was of the violent variety, and what could he say? He deserved what he got. Sakura curled her hands into fists and took a swing, but it never connected. Itachi grabbed her wrist in midair and jerked it away at the last second, throwing the shocked FBI agent off balance. Only his grip prevented her from falling. Now, I can't you have doing that when the one you should blame for all this is me. He smiled at her, but didn't release her arm, even when she attempted to jerk it away. She still had this ingrained belief this man was a mass murderer. She didn't really remember her friend's older brother. This man had become a mythical villain, a minotaur. Being touched by him, being so close to him, and looking into his eyes made inner Sakura cower in fear. You're to blame? She asked weakly. Exactly, Itachi said with a nod and a smile. You see, I don't play nice when I want something. I leveraged my brother in return for Naruto's help. He reluctantly agreed. Now if you're thinking that Naruto was naive to trust me, that may be true. But I assure you, I would have taken Sasuke and fled. You never would have seen him again. Itachi grinned and released Sakura's arm. Sakura's eyes dotted between Naruto, Sasuke, and Itachi. Itachi's brow shot up and she quickly looked away. Is that true, Naruto? She asked. Naruto sighed and nodded.
Yeah.
Sasuke moved closer to his brother and said, And you wonder why people think you're a murderer? I can't believe you knew all this time, Neji said, cutting off Itachi's reply. How could you not tell me? I'm Sasuke's partner! Naruto took a deep breath, his stomach flip-flopping more violently and the ache in his chest fast becoming intolerable.
I couldn't. I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize Sasuke's safety at first. Then, once I knew he was safe, I didn't see how I could convince the rest of you. I decided to do what Itachi told me to do and keep my mouth shut.
Bull! You could have said something. We were sick with worry that Sasuke was dead. But you knew he wasn't and you said nothing. You were being selfish. True, Itachi said he would have taken Sasuke, but would he really have gotten far before Sasuke rebelled? Did he do the right thing? Would Sasuke have let Itachi take him away? Then again, at the time, he didn't know what the situation was between the brothers, and he really did think Sasuke was in some sort of danger. It was a while before he truly came to trust Itachi. No, he was looking out for his friend.
Selfish!
Naruto countered harshly.
I haven't seen him, and I wasn't convinced for several days. I was in agony that Sasuke was in danger, what with Itachi accused of murder.
Neji scoffed. What, did you want to keep him for yourself? Naruto laughed. He just stood there and laughed. The thought of keeping Sasuke all to himself was ridiculous, especially now. Tears were blurring his vision again, but when he spoke, there was no hint of them in his voice.
Keep Sasuke to myself? Wow, you sound like a lover scorned, Neji. I never knew you were so jealous.
Neji was caught off guard by Naruto's perceptiveness. How accurately the hammer hit the nail on the head. We're not... Neji spluttered.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't think Sasuke would be forgiven if he had slept with you.
What's that supposed to mean? Neji asked, temporarily stalled. He felt like he was missing something obvious. He cast a look at Sasuke, who was making a point of focusing on Naruto. Neji felt heat pool in his stomach. It was always Naruto. Sasuke was always talking about him. Why was he closer to Naruto when they were partners, in sports and then at work? Naruto cast a quick glance at Sasuke and bit his lip. As hurt as he was, he couldn't shame Sasuke that way.
It's nothing,
he whispered. Dobe. Sasuke spoke, taking a step closer to Naruto. Naruto took a quick step back.
I need to...
he whispered and turned in the doorway, all but running down the hall. He pushed into the bathroom, the door hitting the opposite wall before swinging back and closing. Naruto bent over to the side of the nearest sink, breathing hard. He felt like his life was crumbling around him. He turned the faucet on and bent down, splashing water over his face. Over the flow of water, he never heard the door open and the click of the lock latching. He felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned and swung his fist, watching Sasuke lean away from the blow expertly, almost as if he expected it. Long experience having his punches dodged while sparring with Sasuke allowed Naruto to keep his balance when his punch failed to land.
What do you want, Sasuke?
He growled. Just this, Sasuke replied and wrapped his arms around Naruto, hugging him close. Naruto stood there, arms limp at his side. A moment later, he was hugging Sasuke back, just as tightly, he said in the crook of Sasuke's shoulder. I'm sorry, Naruto. You really don't know how sorry I am for what I did. You're my best friend and nothing is going to change that. I thought if I told you about Kakashi, you wouldn't be my friend anymore. I tried to tell you so many times, but I kept chickening out. I didn't want to lose you too. You were the only one who stuck by me through everything, after my family's murder, and through Itachi's disappearance. I couldn't get rid of you. Please, don't leave me now. The suddenly desperate lilt at the end tugged at Naruto's heart. Naruto clutched at Sasuke's body, then took a step back, gaze focused on the floor.
Things have changed, Sasuke,
Naruto whispered, releasing Sasuke and leaning against the nearest stall, sliding down to sit on the floor.
You don't love me.
Dobe, I do love you. I'm just in love with Kakashi. If he never came in the picture...
Don't!
Naruto snapped.
Don't say that! And for God's sake, don't let Kakashi hear you say that! Ever! Damn it, Deme! You've made a mess of things!
Sasuke sighed and sat down next to Naruto. I have, haven't I? He mused, snorting. I'm surprised you're pushing me toward Kakashi. No, I'm not surprised, really. You're always thinking of others. Naruto sighed, hitting his head against the metal stall purposely.
You know, we can't be friends right now.
Sasuke felt his stomach clench. What do you mean?
Until you make up with Kakashi, I will keep my distance, and when things are better for the two of you, we can be friends again.
Probation? Sasuke laughed, slightly unsure. He was prepared to give up Naruto's friendship if Kakashi asked it of him, but if he didn't...
You've been warned, Deme,
Naruto said, bumping his shoulder against Sasuke's shoulder. Still friends? Sasuke asked.
Still friends.
Naruto jerked away, the Lollipop Guild song issuing from his pocket. With a grunt, he pulled the phone out of his pocket and answered.
Konohamaru? Shit. Okay, I'll be down shortly. No, I'm on my way now.
Naruto ended the call and turned to Sasuke, smiling. He felt lighter, the flip-flopping in his stomach calming considerably now that he had a chance to talk with Sasuke.
You should get back. Kakashi-sensei's probably worried about you.
Sasuke nodded and stood up, offering his hand to Naruto. Naruto accepted it.
I'll be along shortly. I just have to make a quick pit stop. You'll see.
Naruto laughed when Sasuke cocked an eyebrow and repeated.
You'll see.
They went their separate ways, Naruto turning left and heading to the bureau's lockup, Sasuke returning to the conference room. He's been screaming at the top of his lungs for the last 40 minutes! Konohamaru yelled, trying to speak over Deidara's heated speech about art and cages restricting his artistic flow.
It's a wonder he has any voice left! Release him!
Naruto yelled.
Huh? I said to release him! His presence is required upstairs.
Okay, Konohamaru said, relieved to have the noisy ATF agent off his hands. Naruto watched Deidara shut his mouth the instant key was put in the lock. Am I being arranged?
Not today,
Naruto said, motioning for Deidara and the two guards to follow him.
You're wanted upstairs.
Oh, is it more questioning? He laughed. Please tell me I can speak to that guy with the funky eyes. He was fun to talk to. Naruto snorted and led the way upstairs. Deidara practically skipping between the two armed guards. The idea that this blonde and the guy with the funky eyes would be something like brothers-in-law amused Naruto in sadistic fashion. He opened the door to room 402, motioning the two officers away with another nod. Where are we? This isn't the interrogation room. Deidara scoffed, sounding offended. He turned, locking eyes on Itachi and Sasuke standing close by. Oh, hey! Tachi! Baby Uchiha! Sasuke gnashed his teeth, grumbling low in his throat. Shut up, doper! Yeah, whatever you say, baby Uchiha. Naruto stung a little at Sasuke using his pet name for someone else, though his tone made it clear the insult was sincere. Sasuke clearly growled at the taller blonde. Heel, Ototo, Itachi said, putting a hand on Sasuke's back. Tell him to stop calling me that! Sasuke hissed at his brother. Deidara deftly slipped off his handcuffs, leaving most people in the room shocked. Itachi was the only one unsurprised, though he didn't look happy at the ability. Deidara went for Sasuke. Kakashi put a hand on his gun, but Deidara just hugged him. God, you're not screwing him too, are you? Genma moaned. He flinched when Kakashi glared at him. Nechi turned to glare at him too. Why do you have that idea about Sasuke? Have you even met him before tonight? To be fair, Itachi said, I think he only has one boyfriend now. Sasuke finally shook off Deidara. Hug your own boyfriend! He looked at Kakashi. Did you tell your partner about us? He hissed. No. Kakashi was still glaring at his partner. Wait! Neji said, thrown off by the insinuations flying around. You have a boyfriend? I'm not entirely sure at the moment. Sasuke looked at Kakashi meekly. Who was your boyfriend? Sasuke, for the first time in memory, shifted uncomfortably. He never spoke about his relationships, except recently to Itachi, and now his love life was being discussed in a room full of colleagues. Kakashi and Naruto. At the same time, Itachi added, feeling it was better if Sasuke gave full disclosure now that his sex life was out in the open. Sasuke turned to glare at him, but killed it. He deserved this. It just simmered a moment. He was dating Kakashi. And Naruto. He was so much better than Naruto, and yet Sasuke had never so much as looked at him that way. Kakashi was just so out of left field it failed to compute. You slut! No one expected that reaction from the quiet, dignified Hyuga. Sasuke shrank back. Yeah, I've gotten my scolding from everyone but Kakashi. Sasuke looked at Kakashi's stormy expression, but frankly that look on your face is worse than any scolding. I can't believe you! Neji spat. He felt humiliated, but worse than that, he felt betrayed. By his friendship with Sasuke, and Sasuke's even deeper friendship with Naruto. He was always second best when Naruto was around. Neji had even defended Sasuke, but a part of him felt vindicated. Naruto was scorned as much as he was, and he knew his next words wouldn't bother him as much as they should. He rounded on Naruto, seething with his humiliation. And you're nothing but a whore. Excuse me? Naruto gaped. His jaw dropped before he bristled with anger. Who the hell are you calling a whore? I call it as I see it.
For your information, Neji, I've only slept with one person.
Naruto clamped his mouth shut quickly, his words catching up to him. A deep blush found its way over his face, and he suddenly found staring at the ground fascinating. Itachi stood there watching the scene play out with dark eyes. He had warned Sasuke that there would be consequences to his actions. Yet Sasuke wasn't the one he was thinking at the moment. His heart bled for Naruto, who had just been as humiliated as Sasuke had a minute ago. But Naruto didn't deserve it.
You expect me to believe that?
Neji laughed but stopped when Kakashi spoke. That's enough, Neji, Kakashi commanded. Neji rounded on his former sensei.
You're actually defending him?
Enough! This time Kakashi raised his voice, making the words sound like a bark of a mastiff. Squaring his jaw and with his head held high, Neji stormed from the room, slamming the door closed behind him. Why is he so angry? Sasuke asked. I wasn't even sleeping with him.
He seemed to think that you were a saint,
Sakura said. Not very perceptive, is he? Genma said, and immediately stepped further away from his partner. He thought he should put in for a reassignment in the morning. Now, if we're finished crucifying me, Sasuke said, clearing his throat, maybe you would be interested in hearing what I've discovered about our family's murder? It's probably good Neji left. Sasuke put his laptop case on the desk and pulled out everything he'd been working on for 2 days. He wiped the whiteboard of their investigation of his disappearance and started to clip photos and financial records to it. Itachi sat down near Sasuke at the head of the room, with Deidara standing next to him. Kakashi also stayed near Sasuke on his other side. Genma stayed at the back of the room, far from his partner. Sakura shrank back from Itachi and stayed far from him. Naruto, on the other hand, stayed close to Itachi, feeling protective of him, but did not stand as close as Deidara. Shikamaru and Temari had no aversion to anyone in the room and stayed front and center. Some of you aren't familiar with the murder of our family, Sasuke started briefing. My father was the patriarch and the president of the family company Sharingan. My mother worked for Sharingan for a while but quit when she got pregnant with Itachi. She was a homemaker at the time of the massacre. Our 2 uncles, Madara and Izuna, were vice presidents. 3 of them split all the responsibilities of the company. Itachi was in line to succeed my father and worked as head of research department. Obito and Shisui were my cousins. They had had their own departments within the company. I was 15, so I didn't have anything to do with the company. Shisui was born out of wedlock and Madara had always had custody of him. Izuna had lived outside the estate and gotten married. When my aunt died, he moved back in with us along with his son Obito. The 8 of us all lived together since I was about 4. My family occupied one wing of the house, my uncles and cousins lived in the other wing. We were a very close family. The day of the massacre, I was at a swimming competition in Kiri. Itachi was alone in his townhouse. He'd been living apart for only about 2 months. I should probably hand it over to Kakashi. You helped to investigate. Kakashi replaced Sasuke at the whiteboard. From the evidence, and in the light of recent discoveries, referring to the discovery of Fukaku's body, the killer must have been let into the house. There was no forced entry. That was one of the things that led us to believe it was Itachi. Because of the fire, we couldn't determine the clear time of death on anyone, so it was later at night that it all began, around 10 p.m. But now knowing Fukaku was killed separately and dumped, it's likely the attack began earlier, at a decent time for there to have been a visitor. The fire really made it difficult to tell just what happened, but at the time we were pretty sure. Kakashi hesitated and looked at both brothers, seeing a lack of emotion, but he could see how pale they were. Mikoto was killed first, though now it seems she was killed second, after her husband. Her blood was found on the pieces of Shisui's and Madara's clothes that survived the fire. Because of that, we think they were next to be killed. These 3 murders happened on the ground floor. Mikoto was killed in the lounge, probably while entertaining her guest. Her throat was slit from behind. Kakashi looked a little embarrassed. Even then, it was hard to believe the son could do that. He glanced at Itachi and then quickly looked away. From the angle of the cut, the killer was a right-handed person taller than her. We estimated the killer to be about Itachi's height, certainly not shorter. Shisui and Madara were also killed in the lounge. Madara was slashed in the arm, face and throat, but the fatal wound was a shot in the chest or the back. It was a through shot, hitting no bone. The bullet was never found. Shisui was shot in the head. A silencer must have been used, since Izuna and Obito did not come downstairs. They may have been killed earlier, but then Madara and Shisui didn't react to gunshots either. We believe Madara walked in on the murder of Mikoto, and that's why he was attacked with the knife. Shisui must have come in soon after the fight started. Madara was the only one with any signs of struggle. Shisui was killed in the doorway to the lounge. If I may, Sasuke cut in, Itachi and I have been targeted by a pair of hitmen since last Saturday. I could agree with one perpetrator with 2 weapons. Switching to a gun when his knife would be less effective, but these hitmen suggest there might have been others involved. At least one of them does use a silencer. Kakashi and Naruto stiffened. Kakashi knew Sasuke was targeted by a professional from the evidence in the townhouse. Naruto glared at Itachi, who had clearly lied to him about the townhouse shooting. Itachi briefly looked at Naruto, guilt in his eyes, but he refocused on Kakashi. It's not typical for a killer to use more than one weapon, Kakashi continued. Izuna and Obito were killed in their rooms. Izuna was shot in his bed, but the shot, even muffled, must have woken Obito because he was shot in the middle of his room. He probably heard the shot, get out of the bed to investigate, but was shot in the head before he left the room. His bed was slept in, so we're sure he woke up just before he was killed. Their bodies were dragged downstairs. The fire was started in the entrance hall. The place didn't go up very quickly, probably due to quite a bit of stonework. No accelerant was used. The fire department was called a little before 11. I really don't know when Fugogo was killed, or how, but it's likely he was first to die. We have nearly complete skeleton, but there was no damage to the bones. If he were shot, the bullet didn't lodge in his body, as there was no bullet found in the cistern. No damage to his bones leave us no way to tell how he died. Hyoid bone unbroken, no knife cuts on the bones, no ash or flame damage on bones or surviving clothes. We were checking the cistern because there was a witness statement about someone walking around near the back road, Sasuke said. I believe the murder weapon might have been dumped in the cistern, Itachi said. I didn't think we'd find father there. It had been hidden in weeds. Shisui and I found it when I was about 14 and cleared the entrance and were playing in it. Madara found out and closed it off, worried about any of us kids getting hurt. It's your show now, Kakashi said to Sasuke and turned the briefing back over to him. For a long time, everyone thought it was Itachi. However, Itachi, forgive me, Kakashi, had a little motive. If you're going to blame an angsty teenager, I would have been a better suspect. Then again, I had an airtight alibi. I did argue with father, but it was almost 3 months before, Itachi said. He found out I was gay and threw me out of the house. I had my own apartment, the townhouse, which is where I was the night everything happened. Alone. No alibi. Sasuke pointed out the financial documents. Motive? These financial records show that my father and uncles had been using Sharingan funds to buy shares in Byakugan, the company owned by Neji's uncle. Neji's father, Hisashi, also died, but now I believe it was a murder. The Uchiha and Hyuga have been business rivals, but also friends for generations. It was natural Neji and I were friends, but business was becoming between our families more and more. Hisashi had sold his shares in Byakugan to our family and bought shares in Sharingan. They were planning a merger via hostile takeover. My family would become the largest shareholders and would then force the merger. Hisashi was facilitating the plan and hedging his bets. Apparently he was working behind his twin brother's back. That didn't sit well with brother Hisashi. Hisashi was found dead in his shower. He had just finished working out in the gym in the family house. The brothers were living together much like our family. He took a shower and it was believed he suffered from shock, taking a cold shower after a hard workout, and having a raised body temperature. He passed out and hit his head and never woke up, dying a few hours later. Hisashi found him. I believe Hisashi bludgeoned his brother as soon as he entered the shower and turned the water cold. Hisashi wasn't dead yet, so his body still went into shock. The blow was a little high on the head to be from the wall, in my opinion. There was no blood on the wall, washed away by the shower head. The ME saw signs of shock in his body and no evidence of foul play, so he went with shock and an accidental fall. When our family died, Hisashi bought all his brother's shares back and stopped the merger. He kept his brother's shares in Sharingan, however. Hisashi kept his company and profited from Sharingan's continuing success. He tried to reverse the process and take over Sharingan, but the men who've been running the company in trust for me made sure that wouldn't happen. They were always loyal to my family and felt responsible to keep my family's legacy from me. If I had died too, Hiyashi may have had a better chance to take over, but once Itachi fled after suspicions fell on him, my death would have been too suspicious. Even a suicide would have been investigated with extra care. Kakashi nodded sagely. Sasuke had a few bad days back then, but he had been a fury ball of indignation. Suicide would have been a huge red flag. Even after the investigation stalled, Kakashi kept an eye on Sasuke even if Sasuke didn't know it. Rin too had been concerned about the orphan teenager. She was more ready than Kakashi to swoop in and save him if Sasuke looked like he might become suicidal. How would Hiyashi know about the cistern? Temari asked. Hiyashi had come over to discuss business while father and Madara were closing it up, Itachi answered. Hiyashi knew it was there. I saw him that day talking with father near it. My suspicion really turned to him when I realized the hitmen had to have been sent after Itachi, and only people who could have suspected Itachi was back in town were you all. Someone in the FBI who knew I was missing and suspected Itachi was involved. Neji must have mentioned my disappearance to his uncle. I strongly doubt Neji had anything to do with his father's death, my family's deaths, or the hit on Itachi, but I do think Neji told his uncle that I was missing, and that prompted Hiyashi to send a hitman after Itachi, fearful that he might have figured something out. Why else would he return to Konoha after all these years? Or he might find something, or the two of us together might stumble on the truth. Being that Neji is my partner, he was probably comfortable with me being in the FBI, since Neji would likely tell him if I was making progress or even had time to look into the case. Sasuke picked up the file he drew up and handed it to Kakashi, the highest-ranking agent in the room. Here's my full analysis and copies of the financial documents. Kakashi sat down and read through it. Even though he wasn't an agent and didn't know how these things worked, Itachi knew that it was Kakashi who had to be convinced, and it was his verdict that would decide everything from here on. His own fate lay with Kakashi's assessment. Not able to stand the silence as Kakashi read carefully through Sasuke's file, Naruto asked, "Hitmen?" He looked back and forth at Sasuke and Itachi. We went to Itachi's townhouse that I kept, and there were at least 2 men waiting for us. They were pros. They cleared the ground floor before approaching the stairs. They only made one noise that alerted us to their presence. One of the gunmen and I exchanged a few shots, but didn't hit anything. Used a silencer. Like the gun used to kill your family, Kakashi said without looking up. Itachi noticed, though, that his eyes had been leaping up to look at Sasuke as he told his colleagues about the gunmen. Sasuke nodded. Then we went to our family cabin. They were waiting for us there. That's where I got my little head wound. As we were securing the place, one of them got behind me and hit me with a branch. I did manage to shoot him in the arm and maybe the gut. I was dizzy and not entirely sure the second shot landed. I exchanged gunfire with the other man and we got away, Data added. That's when I actually got the bullet strike on my truck that you saw at Kisame's. God damn you, Kakashi muttered. Sasuke smiled fondly at him. When Kisame called us, I wasn't really surprised. I was quite proud. Kakashi smirked back, then returned his eyes to the file. Fearing they were distracting Kakashi too much with their chatter, everyone stopped talking. It was a tense silence broken only by the turning of pages. Finally, Kakashi sighed and dropped the file on the table. It's not enough to arrest him. The room deflated. Itachi felt sick. Did he have to run again? Sasuke was slightly offended. The others were just disappointed. Though the others weren't personally invested, they knew their colleague, and this was a case with some intrigue. The fact it involved 2 colleagues made it feel personal. Kakashi just sat back, closed his eyes and put his hands behind his head in a very relaxed pose. Itachi was surprised that Sasuke just stared at Kakashi without emotion, like he was waiting. Kakashi lay back in his chair as if he didn't have a fiery Uchiha staring at him and a room full of disappointed people. Itachi looked around and noticed that Genma too was staring at his partner expectantly. Shikamaru grabbed the file and pored over it. Sasuke's briefing was an overview. The file had the details and Shikamaru wanted to find a way to help. Bullets fired at a distance into a tree might retain the striations, especially if it's softwood like pine, Kakashi suddenly said. If those bullets were fired at the cabin site matched the ones from the murders, then there's something. That didn't inspire much hope in the room. Not easily linked to Hiyashi, Sasuke said. After another minute of thinking, Kakashi straightened up and looked through his own paperwork on Sasuke's disappearance. He then pulled out his phone and called someone. Mr. Yamanaka, forgive the late hour, it's Agent Hatake. I wanted to let you know Sasuke has been found, alive and well. Would it be possible for you to come down to our office tonight? There are a few questions about the original case we need to ask you in person. Thank you. Both Uchiha brothers were still and staring at Kakashi in an almost reptilian way. They were both wondering what the hell Inoichi could add to this. I'll go down and meet him, Genma said, glad to find an excuse to leave. Who's Yamanaka? Temari asked. He's the executor of our family's estate and currently runs Sharingan in our stead, Sasuke answered. He was my mentor when I entered the company, Itachi added. You don't think it was him, do you? He has no motive. I don't think it's him, Kakashi assured him. The only bad spot against him was that he believed you innocent, Itachi. But it was just his faith in you and his instincts, not other knowledge, that led him to that conclusion. But he was far more aware of what was going around your family than either of you two were, at least on the business end of things. If it was Hiyashi, Yamanaka should have something for us. They waited. Finally, Genma showed the tall blonde man into the room. He looked like he wanted to rush in and hug Sasuke as if he were a son, but restrained himself. Then he glanced to the side and was wide-eyed to see Itachi sitting there. We now believe Itachi to be innocent, Kakashi informed him. He hasn't officially been cleared, so please don't tell anyone about this. I won't. Please, sit. Inoichi sat down across from Kakashi. Who attempted the hostile takeover after their parents were killed? Hiyashi Hyuga. Tell me about him. Hard man, stoic, worse than Fugaku in both regards. Ruthlessly intelligent and proud. Arrogant, a bit cold to his daughters since neither were boys, nor seemed to have any business talent, but he is protective of them. He's proud of his nephew, Neji, however. He was disappointed when he didn't want to succeed him in the business. What was his relationship with the Uchiha? He and Fugaku were friends. Mikoto was friends with his wife before she died. How did she die? Accidental drowning. She dove into the pool off the diving board and she hit her head on the bottom of the pool. It was too forceful a jump apparently, and she just went too deep. She broke her neck and drowned. Freak accident. Shikamaru was suddenly tapping frantically on his tablet. You seem to know him quite well, Temari pointed out. We run in the same circles. More so now than then. How close were Hiyashi and Fugaku? Kakashi asked. Close enough to invite the other's family over for dinner. Though that invitation was for adults only and not extended to Fugaku's brothers. Just really Fugaku and Mikoto. Fugaku invited the girls and Hisashi and Neji. And what about Mikoto? He tolerated her coming to his home but not her children. Quite frankly, Hiyashi was a little smitten with Mikoto. Then again, everyone was. She was a sweet woman, attractive, kind, articulate. There wasn't a single person in the world who hated her. The party you described to us before. Inoichi's eyes darted briefly to the Uchiha brothers when it was brought up. What prompted the argument? Was Hiyashi there? He was there. Fugaku was just drunk. She scolded him for his state, and he got all jealous and paranoid, but there was nothing in particular that sparked it. He wasn't usually jealous to that degree. What was going on before Hisashi's death? Hisashi? He blew out a breath. You're all over the place tonight. He was fed up with his brother's draconian and traditional way of doing things. Hisashi was born only seconds before his brother, and that made all the difference in the world in that family. Hisashi was sick of being the younger brother, the one who had to kowtow to the family head. He cooked up a scheme with Madara to conduct a hostile takeover of Hiyashi's company. All the brothers joined in on it, as did I and another Sharingan shareholder, Tsukiko Kagetsu. We attempted the takeover first against Hiyashi's company. It was suspicious that soon before the deal could be executed, Hisashi died. Neji was too young to inherit anything, so it all went to Hiyashi in the trust for his nephew. He took the Sharingan shares, and after the Uchiha died, tried to reverse the process and take over Sharingan, but we were in a stronger situation and kept him from having any significant influence in matters. And you never thought he was a suspect in the Uchiha murders?
I just assumed he was being a good businessman. He saw an opportunity, smelled vulnerability, and he leapt at it.
Hiyashi was one to find his wife's body. Shikamaru chimed in. She had begun divorce proceedings, but there was no evidence of foul play, and no one believed Hiyashi capable of murder, being such a prominent citizen. Does he own a gun? Kakashi asked Shikamaru. No, I already checked, Sasuke said.
You believe Hiyashi killed your parents? His wife and brother too? Inoichi asked.
Yeah. How long after the deaths did he start moving in on Sharingan? Kakashi asked.
3 days, I think, Inoichi said.
Did Hiyashi always have long hair?
God, yes. He, Hisashi, and Nechi always had unnaturally long hair.
Very well. Thank you so much for coming down here in person. Kakashi stood and came around to Inoichi's side. I'll walk you out. Inoichi wanted to say something to the brothers, but Kakashi was herding him through the door. Once they were in the elevator, Kakashi asked, Did Hiyashi know about Fugaku's suspicions about Sasuke's parentage?
I don't think anyone outside the family knew except me.
Was Hiyashi merely smitten with Mikoto? Was there more?
Not that I saw, but it's possible.
Thank you. Sasuke will probably be in contact soon. Please, not a word about anything we discussed tonight.
I won't say anything.
Kakashi came back to an expectant room. Last known photograph of Fugaku? The brothers didn't know. Didn't have such thing on hand. How long was his hair? Kakashi asked. Many of your family had long hair. Father's was just a little longer than mine now, Sasuke said. Among the bones were very long strands of brown hair. I saw them. I didn't give them enough thought. I wondered if they were from the body, but once I realized it was my father, I forgot about the long hair. I think Hiyashi stabbed Fugaku in the yard and then dragged him down into that cistern, Kakashi stated. That thing was difficult to open, Sasuke said. I'm not sure he could open it on his own. Granted, it was harder for us since it had 11 years of weed growth over it. If we think he had one or more accomplices, he may have been with them or waiting nearby. I don't think your father was dead and he fisted Hiyashi's hair and took a handful when they dropped him into the hole. Kakashi took up his phone and called down to forensics. What's the progress on the samples from the Uchiha property? I was told they bore similarity samples on file. Was it similar profile Nechi Hyuga? Good. He hung up. Anyone here not believe in Hiyashi's guilt? Anyone? Kakashi asked. No one said a thing. If those hairs are his, that's enough evidence for me. Itachi nearly collapsed. His ordeal was almost over. After 11 years, he could stop hiding. Everyone else in the room stood up if they weren't already. Hey, you're not all going, Kakashi said. I'm going along, Sasuke said. As am I, Itachi agreed, Deidara nodding his agreement as well. Kakashi shook his head. You can't. Sasuke shot Kakashi a dark look. This has to be above board. You'll bias this case. We can't have any kind of hiccup that a smart lawyer can use against us. You know Hiyashi can afford the best, the most unscrupulous lawyer. You cannot be there. Period. He looked from Sasuke to Itachi. That goes for you too. Sasuke's dark look turned brooding, but Itachi's glare was lethal. You know I'm right, and you wouldn't be looking at me like that. Leave it to us, Uchiha. You've done your part. Now it's my turn. Kakashi took that grunt as a victory. Sasuke, have you had that knock on your head looked at by a doctor? Yeah, sort of. I'm fine. Sort of. You'll get to the hospital and get it looked at. In fact, hand over your ID and both of your guns. I don't want you getting any ideas. How do you know I have 2 guns with me? Sasuke, Kakashi urged. Sasuke muttered something in Japanese that didn't sound very polite and disarmed himself. He also tossed his federal ID on the table. My government issues at my house. Actually, we confiscated it when we searched your house. Sasuke drew himself up at that. Only your government issued 45, so calm down. Deidara. His voice was a little angry when he said that name. You're really not involved in a professional capacity, so you can't come. Temari, get the charges against Deidara dropped so he and Itachi can go home. Itachi, stay out of sight. You're still considered a fugitive until we can get some things cleared up. Shikamaru, I need you to work on getting a warrant. I want a warrant on this in case Hiyashi refuses to come in for questioning or denies us entry onto the premises. Find a judge who's willing to sign off after hours. Hell, find one with the balls enough to warrant against a Hyuga. Genma, you're with me on point. Naruto, you stay here with your partner. You're too close to the Uchiha to come along. Or better yet, you two take Sasuke to the hospital so he'll go and won't follow us. Kakashi, you're too close to Sasuke too, Genma pointed out. It's more known that Naruto and Sasuke are friends than our relationship. You're not leaving us behind, Sakura argued, surprising everyone. Being friends has nothing to do with a case. No one in this building can swear no bias when working on a case of a brother agent. We all knew you were close to Sasuke from the get-go, so that was a common knowledge, as Naruto's friendship with Sasuke. You can't cut us out of this unless you want to hand the case off to the local PD. Kakashi sighed. Fine, the four of us will go. He turned to Sasuke. You get that looked at. Hi. Kakashi knew enough Japanese to understand that much. Neji doesn't live with Hiyashi, does he? Kakashi asked Sasuke. No, but he visits often. He has his own place not far from here. Good. Everyone scatter! Kakashi slid into the driver's seat of his car. He wanted to be mobile when the confirmation of the warrant came so he wouldn't waste any extra time. Itachi unexpectedly opened the passenger door and slid in beside him, shutting the door on stunned Genma. Itachi took the keys from Kakashi's lax hand and palmed them. What the? We need to talk. You can't be here, Itachi. You can't ride along. Itachi waved that off. I'm not looking to ride along. This is about Sasuke. Kakashi sighed and sat back. He's not coming along either. So if you're here to try and convince me he should, save your breath. Itachi snorted. Don't worry about Sasuke. I'll keep an eye on him. What I wanted to say was that Sasuke loves you. I confronted him about his relationships with you and Naruto. When he thought about you, his eyes were sad. He missed you terribly. He didn't get that look when I mentioned Naruto. He confessed to me that he was hoping you would ask him to marry you. I think that's a little fast, honestly, especially considering the circumstances. Are you warning me off your brother? No. Then what are you doing? I want to protect my brother and make sure you won't hurt him. Kakashi gave a sharp burst of laughter. Is this the father of a daughter speech where you tell me to take care of your little girl or you'll end up in jail? Oh, I think we both know by now that I wouldn't spend a day in jail. That comment sobered Kakashi. Itachi's eyes were threatening and dark. If he wasn't sure now that Hiyashi was the killer and not Itachi, he'd peg Itachi as a killer. I want to know if you can forgive him, or are you stringing him along to lower the boom later? Kakashi was silent for a moment. What he did disgusts me too, Itachi said, but I think I understand. He was afraid of losing Naruto as a friend. I think he felt either sexual relationship was tied to their friendship, and he thought giving up one meant giving up the other. He didn't hesitate to say he'd give up Naruto, but he wouldn't consider giving you up. I think even Naruto knew on some level that Sasuke didn't truly love him. Sasuke wouldn't let him characterize their relationship as boyfriends or lovers. I want you to forgive him, but it's ultimately up to you. My brother was younger than me when our family died, and he felt betrayed by me, and maybe I did fail him by not staying to prove my innocence. He's damaged, scarred. He fears being abandoned again. Please, forgive him. I love Sasuke, and I know his history as well as anyone. I am angry, but I understand. I thank you for telling me about what Sasuke told you. I'll talk to him about it after this is over. That may not be for a long time, if I have to be arrested. Please, don't let Sasuke fall apart. None of us will arrest you. We'll make sure you can go to ground. But, yes, I'll take care of Sasuke. Thank you. Itachi held out the keys. Kakashi took them. This will be over tonight if Sasuke's correct, and I've been watching his work since he graduated the academy, and he's usually right. Don't tell him I said that. No, we wouldn't want to swell his already overinflated ego. Itachi slipped out and let Genma replace him in the car. Itachi hurried over to Sasuke and Deidara, who had followed Itachi outside. Sasuke raised an eyebrow in question but didn't push it when Itachi didn't answer. He trusted his brother at this point. Naruto nodded to the trio on his way to his car with Sakura. The two pairs of ancients pulled out of the parking lot. They'll park outside a fast food joint or a cafe, get coffee and wait for the warrant, Sasuke said. That way they'll be filled up and ready to go when the call comes. That gives us a little time. Huh? Deidara asked. Let's go before anyone comes to find us, Sasuke said as he headed for his Cadillac. What? Come on, Day. Itachi said. Why do I feel like we're not headed to the hospital to have baby Uchiha's head looked at? I'll let you drive, Sasuke offered. I thought you were the reckless one, Itachi. But he got on the driver's seat, Sasuke in the passenger seat, and Itachi in the back. End of chapter 9. Stay tuned.